thinking about the stuff we play. How I'd rather do that instead. Keep screaming out loud from the top of my lungs. How I'd rather do that. How I'd rather do that. How I'd rather do that. What's left of me? What's left of me? Drowning in feels just like an ocean. Negativity is getting closer. Hard to keep the human it gets colder. You know. Sometimes everything just gets hard. Sometimes everything just gets harder. Feeling like I'm missing apart. They just keep getting much darker. Even when I'm down in the lower, I remember what you were saying. Sometimes all you need is a spark. Maybe just a better kind of bitter. Lose gravity, I'm swimming in the quicksand. Up to my knees. Keep losing sleep, I'm addicted to midnight. So hard to please, so hard to please. Drowning in feels just like an ocean. Negativity is getting closer. Hard to keep the human it gets colder. You know. Sometimes everything just gets hard. Sometimes everything just gets harder. Feeling like I'm missing apart. They just keep on getting much darker. Even when I'm down in the lower, I remember what you were saying. Sometimes all you need is a spark. Maybe just a bitter.
Guiding today's conversation is a leader who has spent more than 25 years shaping organizations and people across the globe. He is the president and CEO of Business Process Outsourcing International, is widely recognized as a transformation enabler and champion of capability development. With a career spanning Citi, IBM, and Baker McKenzie, Eric has been instrumental in advancing the shared services and BPO industry, earning accolades such as the PMAP Exemplar for People Management and recognition among the 100 Global RP. A top psychology graduate from the University of the Philippines with postgraduate studies from LaSalle and the Universidad Complutense de Madrid, he continues to drive BPI toward data-driven service excellence. Today, he brings his wealth of experience and passion for people to moderate our discussion on coaching in a polycrisis world. Let's all welcome Eric Riego de Dios, FPM.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much, Dad, for that very generous introduction. I'm just hearing a bit of a feedback. So coming from our IT team, may I request that probably we can manage that a bit so that we'll have a very interactive session that everyone can listen into. So hopefully I'm not hearing any more of that feedback. Can you give me a thumbs up sign, guys, if audio is perfect by this time? Hearing me well? No more feedback? Perfect. Wonderful. Again, good afternoon everyone and happy Thursday afternoon. Sana hindi kayo masyado maapektuhan ng ating transport strike for today. So welcome to another exciting episode of our podcast of the People Management Association of the Philippines, the Philippine Society of Fellows, and the International Coaching Federation Philippines. I'm still hearing a bit of feedback. Hopefully we can fine tune with our audio, but nonetheless, we'll just power through. I am Eric Reyes with Diyos, as mentioned earlier, of BPO International, and I'll be your host and moderator for this session. So just a quick recap of the previous session. So last episode, we talked about driving engagement through coaching conversations with panelists Vina Paglikawan of Taskas, Mar Villar of Canva, moderated by my friend Jemai Duque Gomez. So the valuable takeaway from that last episode is that coaching is more than a management tool. It's a catalyst for engagement. By building trust, encouraging growth, and fostering purpose, Coaching empowers employees to take ownership of their own development and discover solutions on their own. With continuous support, morale rises, motivation deepens, and accountability strengthens. Ultimately, coaching creates a culture where employees feel valued in an environment where they can thrive, so they become truly engaged. So we had highly engaged participation from the last episode. Kaya naman ngayon, we hope to have the same level, if not even more energy and engagement. No? So, syempre, interactive pa rin tayo today. And that's, we want to have build that kind of a brand whenever we have this coaching session series. No, we want to hear from you. So make sure you use our Zoom chat. Post your questions for the panelists and share your own personal insights or aha moments from our coaching experiences. Babasahin po natin yan maya-maya before we end the session to make sure that there is open session for all of the voices participating in today's coaching conversation. So, can you give me again a hearts up or a thumbs up sign just to check that we are all ready? Ayun, merong mga respondents. Again, very good. Thank you so much for your participation. So many have actually registered, no? So we are seeing the numbers will be growing more and more. So for sure, this will be an exciting event. So together with the team behind this podcast, we are excited to spearhead today's topic. So let's get started. All right. So in this thought leadership series, we explore grounded, hopeful, and very practical perspectives on coaching amid complexity. So this episode dives into coaching leaders through uncertainty, grief, and even rapid change, moving from resilience to regenerative capacity. Coaching for hope without toxic positivity, and supporting organizations in constant disruption. So, from political anxiety to AI disruptions and burnout, leaders face overlapping crises, very compounding crises. No, how can coaching provide hope, resilience, and regenerative capacity? Very profound, no? So let's stay tuned for the next 1 hour or so as we explore practical ways of coaching on how coaching supports leaders and organizations in times of constant disruption. So let us meet our panelists. I am very excited to introduce each of our panelists bring a unique lens to our conversation on today's topic. First of all, first on the list is Jackie Canisa. She is a founding partner of Haraya Coaching and a seasoned leadership and life coach. With global certifications and nearly 2 decades of corporate leadership experience, she empowers leaders and teams to discover purpose, courage, and balance in their professional and personal lives. That is Miss Jackie Canisa. All right, our second panelist is Ana Maria Segundina Lara Ordinario, RPH, MSHH, and ACC. She is a shared leadership team coach and health research consultant with over 20 years of leadership in pharma research and digital health. She integrates social science and coaching to help organizations build resilience and authentic hope in times of disruption. Ana Maria Segundida Lara Ordinario. All right, our third panelist is Gerardo Jerry A. Plana, DPM. Jerry Plana is a veteran HR and organizational development professional with more than 30 years of experience. As Chief Executive of Investors in People Philippines and former Executive Director of PMAP, he has guided hundreds of organizations in elevating people management and leadership practices. Yeah, that is Jerry Plana. Our fourth and last panelist is Joy Santamaria. Joy is the Chief Transformation Officer of Energy Development Corporation, leading the world's largest geothermal power company toward a regenerative future. A certified executive coach, wellness advocate, and mentor, she champions authenticity, resilience, and excellence in leadership. Joy Santa Maria. So now I'm very excited because definitely this is a very stellar lineup, as I have mentioned, and for sure we will have very exciting hour or so. I'm sure, no, ngayon pa lang, that I will be learning a lot from our panelists. No, so first and foremost, let me just pause because I know we have to set the tone and really understand. Napakalaking word nito. Polycrisis. It's very important for us to have a good grasp of what this concept is all about. No, so in simple terms, polycrisis is overlapping crises, no, such as climate change, AI disruption, geopolitical instability, economic uncertainty, and human burnout occurring all of the same time. Damang-dama natin ngayon to, no? Today, transport strike, may gera sa Middle East, may political uncertainty tayo for sure. We are at the brink of economic crisis, may fiscal crisis, and all the while we're talking about education crisis all at the same time. And we're not hearing the end of this all. So that is really polycrisis for us. Damang-dama natin, feel na feel natin, ang dami nating hugot dito. So, unang question ng panelists, no, and anyone could probably start a conversation. Anyway, this is coaching, and we can let the flow going. We do have a script, but of course, we're not beholden to it. So let's see where we will be landing. So when you hear the term polycrisis, ladies and gentlemen, what does it mean in the context of leadership and organizations today itself? Yeah. So let's set the tone. Let's set the right context for the concept of polycrisis. Anyone?
May I start it, Eric?
Of course, gentlemen first. Jerry, go
Gentlemen
ahead.
first. We reverse the rule. I think when we think about, sometimes the question is, we've been talking about change for a long period of time. So the question, what has
Mhm.
changed with change? And the simple answer is,
Even change is changing, Jerry, right?
what is changed with change? And simply, it's just become more complex. We started talking about VOCA, then BANI, and now we're looking at polycrisis. The impact of this on leadership is quite tremendous. I think at the very start, it's not easy to be a leader today. It definitely is a very challenging task. And that's the reason why, in some of our studies in the UK and in other parts of the world, there is a phenomenon that is showing up that's saying people who are asked or who are given the opportunity to be promoted are refusing promotion.
Yeah. Yeah.
Probably part of this reason is this complexity. They don't want to live an imbalanced life, probably for whatever reason. There is
Mhm.
that phenomenon that's growing. So I think that's challenging. But the other side to that is, whenever there's crisis, it's not only danger, really. Every crisis has two parts. The other one is, what is the opportunity in this crisis? I think leaders need to be trained to be able
For sure.
to see where's the danger part, what can I do to minimize
Mhm.
that, and where can I seize opportunity. But the big question is, are our leaders trained for that?
Mhm. Well, that's a very big question, Jerry. So and we'll have more discussion about that. Leadership, even the concept of leadership is changing. And right now, yung iba tumatakbo away from leadership, whereas ang kapanahunan natin, nag-uunahan tayo, no? So, ibang-iba na yung panahon ngayon talaga. Anyone else would like to complement or provide a bit of a contrast to what Jerry has already laid on the table? Anna, I see your wonderful smile.
I can,
Audio,
yeah.
please.
Hi. Um, yeah, agree. And I think what I can add to what Jerry has said is, so all of these things that are happening in the environment comes into
Mm,
workplace. And I would look at it in the perspective of the team, which is your building
yeah.
block of your organization in the workplace. And as a team, the leader and the team members, we start to, because of all of the things that are changing, we start to lose confidence because of the
Mm,
uncertainty, confidence, and trust on things that
right,
we are
right.
used to, like the
Mm,
strategy, leadership, name it, it's crumbling, and we're losing that trust and confidence. And so I think that's a huge impact on how a team works, how, and you already mentioned about leadership, Jerry. So
Mm.
all of these come together to the erosion of the team. And then speaking of opportunities, then there's an opportunity for us to take a look at the team and reconnect as a team.
Mm. Oh, wonderful perspective, no? But definitely, because of the changing times, there's a lot of insecurity, and that actually seeps into the anxiety factor as well, no? So many things moving at the same time. A lot of nodding heads. Jackie, Joy, any thoughts just to complement whatever was said already?
No, I just think of it as I guess, a core leadership kind of shift,
Mm.
from what
Mm.
was to what is
Mm.
and what will be. And
Wow.
therefore, think about it as, instead of before, we think of playbooks maybe, and this is how you do things, one, two, three. There's no such thing as that now.
Anymore.
So it's more, going from being an expert or being deciding on things because this is the way things will go. It's more about navigation, less of control, but really
Mm.
navigation, understanding the complexity, and trying to maybe veer away from becoming predictable, because everything is always emergent. And therefore,
Oh
when you
yeah.
realize
Mm.
that things are emergent, how do you then, as a leader, think about it in a way that's maybe systemic and creates ripples, and see how, you actually tend to go beyond a linear thought process, but really looking at it
That's
more
right.
holistically, not just from a company perspective, if you're a leader of the company, sure,
Mm.
but
Mm.
also
Mm.
leading teams as well as leading yourself. Because you
That's
have to
right.
realize there's no answer now to all of your questions. How then do you
Very
navigate
true.
and regulate yourself to inspire
Mm.
that stepladder hope, clarity, maybe a
Mm.
transformation for yourself and the team in such a
That's
context.
right. So yeah, self-leadership, self-knowledge, team leadership as well. And Joy, sabi ni Joy, navigation. Kasi parang ngayon, iba na eh. Hindi na siya yung dati mong 1, 2, 3, 4. And you have to have that heightened sense of sense-making as well, because you have to understand all of these moving parts. And no one actually told us, even in our college or university, how to prepare for such an environment. Diba? Jackie, you're nodding your head. I'm sure you have some thoughts as well.
Yeah, it is about navigating, perhaps with maps that were drawn for a different world altogether, right? We grew up in a world that looks very, very different from today. The lens, I guess, that I'm seeing this at is also from what's happening inside the brain as we're navigating through this complex period. So what this means for leadership now is that there is a much higher cognitive load that we're carrying,
Yeah,
because we're
right.
having to make quicker decisions with lesser
Yes.
information at our fingertips, and having to make them one after another, or even perhaps all together at the same time. So there is really a
Mm.
need to understand, okay, how do I step back sometimes from
Mm.
carrying that load? How do I leverage resources around me, the teams that I work with, so that I'm not
Mm.
carrying that load all to myself? And then also making sure that you're continuing to care for this system and this body that is having to make all of those decisions, no? So yeah, it's it's complex and also exciting at the same time, I think.
Wow, there's at least there's still an excitement there,
Yeah.
Jackie. And you mentioned cognitive load, and I recall this concept of the overwhelmed employee and overwhelmed leader by Josh Bersin. So very real for us and for me specifically. So with all of these changing things, so many things are as well changing, including the role of a coach. No, so before we would define a coach as such and such, textbook style, literature based. But given all of these polycrises, what role does coaching play in a certain times when leaders themselves feel uncertain, overwhelmed? No, I'm
Okay.
sure you as coaches you have felt that as well, diba? And it's hard as well when you yourself are overwhelmed, and then you now have to coach other people who are equally or probably not as overwhelmed or more overwhelmed. So how does that come into play, no, yung role natin as coaches?
Yeah, let me take a stab at that, Eric. First of all, as I was listening to my co-panelists, I think the word navigation. There's another term that is often used these days that describe that the picture of what you've been painting. It's called discontinuous change.
Oh, wow.
Discontinuous change means what will happen in the past is no longer a good basis for predicting what will happen in a different future. And that can be very unsettling for leaders because even your planning process gets affected by that. Meaning to say, what has worked in the past may not necessarily work in a different future.
Very
That's
true.
why you have to move forward, navigating, not controlling. And emergence is a word used by Joyce. And that's the reason why we need teams now, which Anna was
Yeah,
focusing.
Anna.
Because this is not a one-man's job anymore.
True.
We need to bring the collective to be able to navigate together these uncertainties, these complexities that we're facing. Going to the coaching question, the question is, how does a leader, how does coaching play a role
Yes.
in this? I think this is where coaching really fits to a T in terms of what its true purpose and mission is. Because you're saying, how can a leader, can lead in this uncertainty? Sometimes, the leader themselves needs to be coached as well before they even coach, because they're
True.
feeling the uncertainty. They are also unsettled with this unsettling environment. So I think this is the right time to really take a look at coaching in a very serious way as a way of navigating.
We need coaching more than ever, especially in a polycrisis environment. And nakakatuwa lang din kasi when I was studying in psychology, they always say, sabi ni Freud, no, history is destiny. Pero ngayon, di mo na daw masabi, sabi ni Sir Jerry, di ba? You can never say based on history that it will repeat itself. No? So sabi na nga din ni Joy, no, yung 1, 2, 3 before cannot be applied now. Baka 3, 2, 1 ngayon, di ba? And so on and so forth. So very uncertain. Anna, any thoughts from a team perspective here?
So one thing that has recently emerged in the coaching world is team coaching. So, and it's something that I think is worth exploring. Of course, it's important, as Jerry mentioned also, the leader would need coaching. So one-on-one coaching will always be there, will always be important. And so it's good to explore both modalities that helps the leader first, and then a team coach that can help how the team can come together. The other thing that I thought of was the overwhelm. So the topic would be overwhelm. And I think this is where coaching can come in, whether one-on-one or team coaching, because what we know of overwhelm is the person, there's no other way to do it but to extract that person temporarily from the situation because of overwhelm. And I think that's where coaching plays a part. It's a pause. It's introducing another person in the space that can be that pause and create that space to disconnect so that then we can reconnect back later.
Nice. Wow, I love that. Pausing, disconnecting just to reconnect more effectively, probably. Joy, you're taking notes. I'm sure you have lots of wisdom already on your notebook.
No, I was just reflecting on how the first two panelists actually said it. No, one idea is that yes, we need coaches, and coaching plays a really more important role of navigating this polycrisis world, right? And while that's true, and I think that's really key, one of the things that really needs to emerge is that leaders see coaching as a primary skill that they need to have, because it's not just about coaching the leader. It's as Anna mentioned, it's team coaching now. how do you navigate, or how do you decide when things are constantly changing? Obviously, you don't own the expertise to decide solely as a leader, and you have to rely more constantly into the rest of the organization to actually do that. So, and the way to propagate coaches is, sure, there are coaching programs that companies need to have, leaders need to engage in, but also how do we then embed that into the practice of daily life, so that
Oh,
everyone gets elevated and everyone gets
yeah.
a skill that's now really critical on a
Mm.
day-to-day basis, and not just some nice program that HR will
Yeah.
recommend and then it's done one-off. It's not. It's a constant now, given the world that we're in.
Oh, nice thought there, Joy. Kasi before we thought, yung coaching para lang yan sa select few. Para lang yan sa ganitong certain events. Now we're seeing that it's an everyday requirement. It's a must-have for any leader, di ba? Because of the need for it to be applied on a daily basis, as Joy mentioned. And Jackie, your perspective, definitely we welcome that. Just to wrap things up from this, I don't know, from this segment of the conversation.
Yeah, what I'm appreciating from what I've heard so far is that
Mm.
coaching has a lot of impact. No, both from the standpoint of the leader being coached one on one, the leader
Right.
learning how to coach their teams, teams being coached. Why is that so? I guess is the question I can try and answer. No, ano bang nangyayari pag nagkakaroon ng coaching session? Um, when a coach or a leader is able to create a very safe enough container or space for
Mm.
themselves, for their teams, for for the person that's being coached in front of them, right?
Mhm.
What happens? The the cognitive load that we were talking about earlier, right,
Mm.
becomes lighter because I
Mm.
feel safe. And so the
Mm.
kind and the quality of the decision making I'm able to make in those moments are actually tapping on more parts of my brain rather than just the stressful parts that are very emotion based. No, so that's the kind of container that coaching can provide in these kinds of uncertain and complex times.
Ang galing. But definitely yung ganyang klaseng coach, yung being able to create a safe space, no mo? That kind of a safe container. It's a skill and a competency na kailangan ding mahone, no? So having said that, ano pa ba yung ibang competencies and skills that would be more needed in times like this, in a polycrisis environment? Of course, kung normal times, may set of requirements na tayo for being an effective coach, for sure. Pero magbabago ba yan, or will there be qualities that will be more needed in times like this more than the other? So another thought,
I think,
question.
yeah, I think the
There you go.
question is, the way I size up the question you're raising, Eric, is what kind of coaching is needed in a polycrisis?
Yeah, and what kind of coaching and what kinds of competencies will
And
the coach really need to amplify during these times? No, I'm sure meron tayong, sabi ko, meron tayong set of qualities that parang standard siya. Pero may mga kailangan bang i-amplify more than the other? Or may extra ba tayong kailangang idagdag out of that normal menu or
you,
recipe?
yeah,
Just a question. We might have
yeah.
different perspectives.
One thing about coaching is I think it serves a real need for people, that when we teach it to leaders, one of the basic things that happens is leaders begin seeing, listening, and valuing people. By the very discipline of coaching, people feel seen, heard, and valued. That by itself is a powerful experience, employee experience.
Mhm.
And if to be a good coach, I think you need to do other things as well. You need to be coached as well. You need to practice self-care. One of the important things I see as an other competency of a coach is how you manage your energy.
Very good.
Energy management is beginning to be big now, because sometimes you engage in activities that de-energize you. That I think we need to be very careful about the activities that energize us and that de-energize us. I think when you coach, it's hard work. The real coaching, I'm sure Jackie and my colleagues in the panel or professional coaches will are, will that's hard work for the coach. Okay.
For sure.
And that requires a lot of energy. Okay.
Wow. Well, Jerry, very interesting corner there, and we will amplify that a bit more because I have a follow-through question later. But before that, let's just exhaust perhaps the other competencies and qualities that we would really need during these times. So ano pa kaya? Aside from active listening, really making sure that people gets heard, valued, at least they feel that they are valued, they're heard, they are seen. That's in itself is very powerful. But what else would we need during these times as qualities of effective coaches?
Maybe I can add to what
Ayan.
Jerry said,
For sure, Jackie. Go ahead.
Eric. And uh, in the earlier days of coaching as a practice, no,
Mhm.
bata pa ako nun. Coaching was very much about performance. Moving
Mhm.
a person from point A to point B, what's your
Mhm.
goal? What are your
Mhm.
hurdles? How do you get
Mhm.
there? And yes, that might still be relevant today, but there is so much more, I think, and this is what Jerry, I think, was alluding to as well, about understanding the humanity of this person that is being coached. No, do you understand what makes this person unique and different? Do you understand how their brain operates? Do you
Mhm.
understand why point B is important to them in the first place? And I think those things can elevate the quality of the coaching conversations. So that's one, I think, aspect that I think we can leverage as coaches. Now, how do we understand the humanity? The second is, I think, leveraging on our culture. We have a lot of aspects of Philippine culture that's very, very meaningful and relevant to coaching. No, so this concept of pakikipagkapwa tao, for example, is something that we can definitely highlight in our coaching conversation. So those things, I think, will not just move the coaching conversations from performance to dealing with challenging times. They will make it much more relevant for sure.
Ang galing. Napakaganda ng ano, no, yung pakikipagkapwa-tao, bring the culture and the spirit of the Filipino to the foreground of coaching conversations.
Yeah, Eric,
Really,
can I just quickly build on what
for
Jack
sure.
was sharing, because this is, I think, relevant to our discussion, because we're now talking about, in a polycrisis, the profile of the people that leaders lead is different.
Mm,
So, and I think Jackie pointed to a point that makes the kind of coaching that is appropriate for this kind of people, no? And that is really, there are so many terms for this: coaching the person, coaching the being, whatever you call it.
mm,
It's towards that, because if you're unsettled, the more you need to have a conversation that can settle you, that can ground you, that can bring you back on your feet. And that is the kind of conversation that is needed by many people, so that they can get back to being productive. Because unless that's addressed, it will affect productivity, definitely.
mhm,
Unsettled
mhm.
now is the norm. you know we cannot blame people for being unsettled these days, because the world is really, turbulent.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. That's the norm. That's the norm. And that's why coaching should also be the norm, right? So Anna, go ahead.
And so I'm going to build on what Jerry said. We feel unsettled. And one of the themes that you mentioned, Eric, when we started the podcast is hope. And I think it's a good place to think about that in terms of coaching. And what I know about hope from research is that it's made up of three things. It's about realistic goals, and though this is all, we're unsettled because all of this is now crumbling, right? The strategy is crumbling. And then the pathways that we go about to achieve the goal, and then the agency or our belief in ourselves, or the belief of the team that they can actually do it. And I think that's where coaching really helps, because those three is our themes where coaching can really help, starting with the person, their agency, their belief, and then that's where we can go forward and reset realistic goals and their options, their choices for pathways, and that leads you to hope.
Wow, nakakagaan naman ng spirit yung mga ano natin, pakikipagkapwa, pag-asa. Joy, baka meron ka diyang another uplifting
Nag-iisip
concept that
na nga
you'd
ako
like to
ng
share?
Tagalog word na mahaba. I don't know. I'm poor at it. But I think for coaches, no, what's becoming even more critical and in coaching leaders is the ability to coach different kind of agility that's needed. Learning agility.
Wow.
It's not so
Yeah.
much just what I know or what I've experienced, but understanding what's out there, understanding the context, and by which I realize, how I can manage it as a leader and what's the intention, and not just the performance or the whatever, right? It's
Mhm.
the intention, because the performance can be 100 in one day, zero in the next, by virtue of the context by which we live in. So learning, the leaders attempt to learn how to learn something new, enhance
Mm,
capabilities that are needed, and most importantly, I think, is unlearn the stuff
yeah.
that's not needed anymore for things to grow. um, and I think the self-reflection that happens within a coaching um, standpoint brings about that kind of environment of reflection and decision making towards an intention. So, may naalala na ako. Kailangan tayo
Ayun,
mag-muni-muni.
ayun.
Yung
Reflection,
pagmumuni,
reflection.
kailangan
Yeah,
ng constant na pagmumuni.
true,
Kasi
true.
hindi lang siya, you cannot just respond to what's happening outside. You have to be able to constantly step back and see whether that's even worth reacting to, or
Mm,
it's it's something that you cannot control, and therefore you do something else that you can
mm,
actually, towards an intention. So I think
true.
that's the value of how coaching can be for leaders.
Yeah, and tying it up dun sa sinabi mo kanina, Joy, no, parang 'di ba navigating and being heightened with sense of awareness of your environment. Kasama na diyan yung agility na sabi na learning, unlearning,
Yeah.
relearning, and introspection o pagmumuni-muni, no? Pagmumuni-muni, pag-asa, pakikipagkapwa, no? Those are very Filipino concepts that are very relevant for our coaching practices, no? So kanina sinabi ni Jerry, no, yung mga coaches ngayon, they have to manage their energy kasi otherwise ang totoong coaching tunay na nakakapagod kasi minsan nakakaubos ng listening to others, really trying to amplify humanity in the person that you're talking with. So what are the practices that can help leaders renew themselves while leading others through uncertainty? No, so how do you renew that energy? How do you keep yourself charged? Kumbaga. So how do we manage our energy? To put it in Jerry's terms.
One word is purpose. I think having an inspiring purpose is one that continuously energizes one. I think we need to be crystal clear of what we're all about. I like just going back to what Joy was saying about the Muni Muni. Just reminded me what you were saying. Why coaching became becoming to be so popular, and these days, because the world of work has been so obsessed with results, with action. There's almost no time to think anymore.
Mm,
So what coaching is providing is, hey, let's pause and let's think. At its fundamental level, that is the proposition of coaching.
mm,
There's so many things happening, get things done immediately. That's why we jump to solutions fast. We're in a frenzy, because of what's happening in the world. But coaching is saying, hey guys, let's pause, let's think,
yeah, yeah,
let's reflect. At its
yeah.
very fundamental, that's
Mm.
what coaches do. Give that space.
Give that space, give that container, that sense of pause, safety, and reflection. That's how you also regenerate your energy, according to Jerry. Other thoughts of how do you manage your energy in a polycrisis environment?
Maybe I just want to add
Joy.
because I'm an advocate for wellness and healthy living and all of that, right? Um, fi- I would say find what grounds you,
Oh,
whether
very
it's
nice.
reading, from my end, it's running.
Mm.
Um, Others find it, I don't know, eating, maybe exercising, yoga, or whatever it is. But find the space within yourself to actually ground you. And as coaches, we always say ground first before you coach, right? But on a more and
Mm,
more basis, you have to rely on that as a leader, because you enter rooms that may be so complicated to navigate or so complicated to make a decision on, etc. But seeing the what's out there and what needs to get done um, can really happen when you're grounded. I once read the book, and I always say mention this, that you have to have practically two perspectives. One
mhm,
is being on the dance floor, which means you're doing stuff, you're deciding, you're making action, but also in the balcony
Mm.
to
mm,
actually see what's happening, reflect on that.
mm,
And you can
mm,
only be aware that you need to be there when you're grounded.
mm,
So it's a technique. It's a way by which you can manage energy, because say you're in the dance floor, you're super tired. You actually have to
mm.
recognize that and know that I need to step back a little bit and do something else. See what's really happening before I attack something again.
Wow. Being in the dance floor, but at the same time being at the balcony, seeing yourself dancing as
Yeah.
well. So there's two perspective that somehow would amplify each other. Grounding. That's where Joy is saying to complement purpose. Opened by Jerry earlier. Any concept that would help us renew and regenerate our energy in this polycrisis world. Jackie or Anna? Anna, go ahead.
Okay. Um, what I was just going to say on top of that, don't forget about the team. So if you're a leader, don't forget about your team. Most of the time when we are with our team, it's about performance. But everything that has been said is what I mentioned a while ago. Disconnect to reconnect to connect again. So connect with the team, not with what you're supposed to do, but maybe stories. Tell stories with each other, and be that safe space and take that time.
Right. Reconnect, recharge, right? Jackie.
Yeah, it does begin with a level of cognizance of what is it that drains and your energy, and what adds to your energy, right? And that's different from person
Mm,
to person. There's a
true.
just right level that each of us have when it comes to stress, right? That's called eustress. So every person has a different level of eustress. So knowing when your energy starts to get too much or too little is, I think, key. So having that cognizance is one thing. Another is I would emphasize the value of connection, human connection, in
Human
gaining that
connection.
energy. We're wired to be connected with other human beings. This is how our system works, which is why the pandemic really did a lot of messy stuff with our brains, because we are wired to be connected and so socially connected. So those are two things I guess I would add on what's already been shared.
Wonderful. So purpose, grounding, disconnecting, and then social connection. No? So those are some of the few things that definitely could recharge and re-energize our coaches. But the times are changing, and there's a lot of things going on: AI, technology, and say, mentioning technology. What impact does technology have on the coaching practices? May impact ba? Nagbago ba yung approach natin only because there is a lot of channels, platforms, applications, whatnot? Does it enhance coaching? or does it risk reducing human connection, which we talked about, Jackie? No. So, what does technology really do on coaching?
I want to start because I deal with
Oh,
technology as well
yeah.
in my day job.
First to press the unmute is
Advocate for
go ahead.
technology, and maybe there's a bit of uh, I guess risk or danger that coaches may be seeing by virtue of technology. Um, I think of it in two lenses. One lens is that make use of it. It will give you data that you never would have reached before, the breadth of it, examples, techniques, etc. that can be used. The other side of it is the fear that because people have the same, I guess, access to that kind of data, you won't need coaches. I'll coach myself, right? I'll ask ChatGPT, I am feeling stressed. What should I do?
They
How do
encourage you,
I
Joy, to
manage
say
a
you can
team?
actually talk now with
Yeah,
AI. You can talk and
yeah, or
you ask
whatever,
very
and
good
then you
questions,
talk.
by the way, diba? So
Correct, diba? But I think we talked about human connectivity and human connections. I think that's something that the AI or any technology for that matter won't be able to give.
mhm.
And therefore, as coaches, part of our learning path would really be to understand these technologies so that we understand how to make use of them and how to better our practices so that the connection with our coaches is maintained and is even grown, right?
Yeah.
I think all of this data AI technology will make people seem smarter,
Hmm.
but without the, I guess, the discipline of reflection, which coaching brings, self-assessment, etc., and all of that, it won't make people wiser. And what we
Hmm.
need in a polycrisis world are people to be wiser, more intentional about their actions, more intentional about what it really is that needs doing versus what's just reaction to whatever is happening.
Intentionality, not reactivity, human connection, pausing, reflection. Those are the things that cannot be done by our AI or technology
But
counterparts.
use
Where
AI,
you're
use
already, I
data,
mean,
because that will
yes,
really help
but
the
use it,
coaching
use
practice
it
as well.
So I
for
think the
sure.
word
So
is, yeah,
Yes,
database,
I think the word
database
is,
coaching as
I
well,
think the
right?
word is
Yeah.
selective use.
yes.
Selective.
Selective
Okay.
use.
Let's hear it out, Jerry.
Because even if you have an AI coach, for instance, I think the best that can do is the early days of coaching, which Jackie was describing a while ago. Probably for that kind of coaching, performance, solution-oriented coaching, that will do.
Mm.
But when you're coaching at the core of the humanity of the person you're faced with, that's coaching with the heart. And machines are
Mm.
heartless. how can how can
Mm.
you connect heart to heart
Mm.
if one has no heart? So it's a very human connection activity, coaching at that level, coaching the person, coaching the being.
Not just mind to mind or brain to brain, heart to heart, and that's the very essence of a human coach as well. Okay, Jackie, your turn this time.
Yeah, so this question reminded me of the extended mind theory that was introduced many years ago, where the premise is that humans, what makes us actually quite a unique species is our ability to think beyond our own brains. So your
Mm.
ability to think doesn't just isn't limited by what's between your ears, right? You're able
Mm-hmm.
to think with others, and that also goes for the use of tools and technology. That's why we're so quick to adapt, actually, because we're able to take what's in the environment, take what is new in our technology, and use it to further our survival and our thriving, right? And so that's the that's human behavior, and I think it's an advantage for sure. I do agree with Jerry that it is about using it where it adds value to your life, and knowing
Mhm.
when that selective how to select when it does add value, right? um at the
Mhm.
end of the day, we are still humans, coaching humans, right? There is use for technology for sure, but how do we dance with it such that it helps to create that a better human connection?
Right. It's humanizing coaching. That's what we're seeing here as well in the chat box. Anna, let's seal it off this section for you.
I'll seal it with something provocative. So true
Hmm.
to our theme, that life is constant changing. So we know this is what AI and technology can do,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
what we can do with it in coaching for now. But
Mhm.
who knows what it can do in the future? So I'm to
Right.
ask, okay, so if they can't have emotions now, but I don't know, who knows? But I think what gives
Mhm.
me comfort is that as it evolves, because of our brains as well, right? That technology evolves, so must well evolve and continue to make meaning and find what is really the meaning of being human, and continue to go inward as well and find what is truly human, get to know ourselves some more. That gives me comfort.
Wow, okay. Actually, for now, 'di ba, masyadong malalim ang pagiging human na hindi pa rin natin na tutuntun yung pinaka bottom of humanity. And that's still worth very much exploring, especially in a changing environment, technology driven. Babalik ako dun sa first question ko kasi very similar, no, now that we talked about technology and all of these new things happening in a polycrisis environment. May mga capabilities ba tayo na coaches of the future? Say, 3 to 5 years from now. And sabi mo nga, Ana, di ba? We don't know what will happen. Yung AI, baka mag-evolve pa siya. Di ba? May mga capabilities or competencies pa yung future coaches that they need to actually hone now and perfect and become experts in the future na hindi natin expect before or 5 years ago. Meron ba kayong nakikita? To Joy's point, yung emerging capability na nakikita natin. Dati hindi natin pinapansin, parang supplemental lang. Ngayon nagiging parang core capability na siya that is required for the future of coaching. May sensing ba kayo on that aspect of coaching?
I'd like to start it off by saying that I think even the discipline of coaching is still continue to evolve.
Very true.
And as it continues to mature, you know, I think what we will probably see in the future is what we call deeper coaching. I think it's just like going into the ocean. It depends on how deep. And I think what is good about this pathway to depth, to human depth, is we really are able to rediscover our humanity in the age of AI. I
Mhm.
think that's one of the most wonderful thing that coaching conversations can bring about. I'm able to
Mhm.
rediscover myself, my humanity, and
Mhm.
that's a good thing. It gets me centered, it gets me grounded, it gets me whole, and that's important in a situation like this polycrisis.
Wonderful, Jerry. Rediscovering the humanity within. Nice. Could be the next book for Jerry Plana. Anyone else? Anna, you unmuted yourself.
Not really new, but something that we can do more of,
Mm.
that the
Mm.
coaches, us that have been trained as coaches, we really need to look into ourselves and our emotions. So the work of emotions, I think, is something we can do more of, in terms of that skill, upskilling not only coaches but everyone. Because imagine
Mm.
humans are the ones um, that does the design of the technology. And so imagine if we're not in control, regulating our emotions. We don't understand our emotions. It's designed. So something we can do more of.
But something that we can further amplify that will be useful in the next few years or so. Any thoughts, Jackie or Joy? Same unbut, same unmuting.
Okay, you go
Free
ahead,
for all.
Jackie. You
Go
want
ahead.
or me
Joy, go ahead.
first?
Yeah, go ahead,
No,
Joy.
because coaching at its essence is about depth rather than breadth or anything superficial, right? And I think with everything that's happening, polycrisis world and all of that, with the
Mm,
age of disruption, right, left, right, and center, it's really coaching the identity. It's coaching the
mm,
person. It's coaching for what purpose? It's coaching for wisdom
mm,
because that's the only, I guess, element by which we can, again, I use the term, navigate this world.
mm.
We can rely on, but at the end of the day, for us to progress as individuals, as teams, as corporations, we really have at its essence a deeper understanding of our core and what it's supposed to deliver. And that's what the beauty of coaching is, because it coaches that.
Right.
The
And
tools may
someone
differ,
on the,
but it coaches that.
yeah, for sure, for sure. And someone says deeper coaching in the age of AI and polycrisis. And it's also known as vertical coaching. And that's what you're saying, Joy. No, palalim ng
Yeah.
palalim. And sometimes baka nga wala siyang finite depth, diba? Sa sobrang lalim
Mm.
niya. Jackie?
Yeah, this deep work it definitely is going to be, I think, much more valuable moving forward. Um, if you are a coach, or if you're coaching within your teams, there is also an imperative to do that deep work for yourself, because we need to know what client. It's
Mm,
difficult to draw that out
mm,
from a coaching conversation. So that's one, I think, space. uh you've got to keep working.
true.
I have the privilege of working at the intersection of coaching intersections in what we do. Do we understand? Do we suddenly come up with very deep issues that perhaps may not be appropriate for coaching spaces? What do we do in those moments? How do we equip ourselves so that in that moment of need, we're able to still support, right? And also knowing when we cannot. I think, Eric.
Right. So ang galing, no, parang per work in yourself kasi well, the future of coaching requires now deeper reflection, deeper introspection as well. Wonderful. Go ahead, Terry.
That's a very important.
Yes.
If we go back to
As
the
for
leadership,
for
we
sure, Terry,
started
go
our
ahead.
conversation with impact on leadership. You know what's fascinating in my
Mm,
kind of
mm,
work, when you take a look at leadership competencies in organizations, not all have a
mm-hmm,
section on leading self. Leading self is often missed. It's about
mm,
leading others, leading a business, lead with strategy. It's all
mm,
very external. And here is where coaching and probably that deep self-awareness that is required to be able to lead others better is important. That's why we have so many leaders
mm,
these days we see, that are lost. they have lost their way, you know, because
Mhm.
we lack the foundation for teaching leaders this is how you should lead yourself. And this is where all these things
Mm.
becomes very, very important.
Wow. That's very true, no? And meron din dito, sabi dito, you versus you. So as we try to bring out a better version of others, that also challenges us to be the better versions of ourselves, to bring out the better versions in others. So parang ang galing, no? Because it's sort of a self renewing and uplifting process as well. So we talked about all introspection, inner, personal, humanity, parang palalim inside, but of course coaching also has a wider impact outside, no? So we talked about coaching and its responsibilities not only to the people but also probably to social and environmental issues. We're bringing coaching to the wider scope of things, no? So anong role ni coaching in a polycrisis world where we're seeing wars, no, politics, tension, even fiscal crisis? Meron bang
I start
of course.
when you do coaching and you help himself or herself, I think in that journey to self-discovery, okay, was discovered, and this is where all of a sudden you become other oriented as well. That you're not just your ego, that there's a bigger world around you that needs some caring and some, some help. And that's where the social and the environment comes into the picture. So coaching has a role to play in making people more enlightened as far as that
Wow,
is concerned.
okay. Through coaching, you discover your purpose, and your purpose will ignite that domino effect outside of you. Any ladies game this time?
No, because
This is a very intriguing question, Joy. Go ahead.
going back to the role of coaching for leaders, right? To coach the leader into really understanding his identity, his purpose, gaining more wisdom, etc. The net effect of that actually has, a wider range of impact to his team, to the rest of the
Mm.
organization, and and now he's able to, I guess, unlock beyond the I guess the community. And it also unlocks capabilities that may not have been inspection happening and greater intentionality happening because of coaching that leader. And so for coaching the leader or coaching the self, because because we live in a world that exactly demands that kind of step in, step back, understand, not being the expert but being a guiding force. Those are the things that I can share.
Sana talaga may mga good coaches sa mga world leaders.
Sorry, the other thing is how do you get clarity in the chaos? Removing the noise to seeing
Right.
what's really purposeful.
That's
Because a
right.
lot of the we say polycrisis, like a lot of it are noise, and we need to be
Mhm.
able to find that grounding within ourselves and our teams to know our purpose and and intentionality in this kind of a world. Because
Yeah.
otherwise, it's all overwhelmed. Because really, it's overwhelming if you just react.
Na totoo. Times
Yeah.
even your voice is drowned, and it's so hard when you don't
Mhm.
so that you can navigate this
Correct.
polycrisis world much better.
The other
Go ahead, Jerry. No.
value I see for coaching is because without coaching, the way we address problems, it's the problem is always out there. No? It's others. We exclude
Mm,
ourselves. It is as if we're not part of the problem. We are not part of the solution. But here comes coach and say, this thing. But that is often in our normal way of thinking.
mm,
It's others and not me. There's nothing wrong with me. I think including ourselves in the equation of why situations happen, is what coaching has brought to the table.
self-reflection kasi part ka pala ng problem, Jerry.
Yeah, and you ask the question, what do you think is your part in
For
this
sure.
situation?
Anna, what about the team perspective on
Yeah,
this?
I'll just build on what Jerry said, no? And also to build on what powerful modality is that sustainability. When because of the process, because we're partnering and not directing the client, they actually it leaves a more lasting, yung effect is more lasting, and the client is self-sufficient. And that goes the same for the team. We leave the team after
Mm,
team coaching a self-sufficient
mhm,
team that can manage their own their own
mm,
selves. And that's what makes it a powerful tool to grow more leaders and to grow excellent teams
mhm,
that work together. But and then the what is left na lang is for us to democratize it
mhm,
more so that more people can experience that growth through coaching.
mhm. The amplifying and multiplying effect of team coaching. That's from Anna. Jackie.
I don't know what else to add. That I mean, all has been said, right? um, when we're coaching the human being, it is a whole person that we are coaching, and if the premise is the belief that this whole person has already what it takes to create a positive impact in the world, in the environment, in society, in communities, then that's where it will lead to.
Mhm.
So I guess that's just, I guess, summing up what's already been shared by the rest of the panel.
Wonderful. It's the whole person that has different facets that connect to different sides of the community and to the world. Wonderful. Madami na tayo na cover pero madami pa kasi napakalaki ng konsepto, napakalaki ng conversation pieces. No? I'm sure we'll not be able to finish it, and I'm just conscious of time because we promise that we'll make this interactive with questions coming from the people themselves. So it's 3:07. I wanted to give the floor one final time to you guys. Anything else that you'd like to share? And if you do have one or two sentences, no? What is the deeper purpose of coaching in a world facing multiple crises all at once? Any thoughts that you haven't shared or anything that you're passionate about that you want to reiterate to our listeners?
Okay, can I start? I'll start it.
Yeah.
So, probably in a nutshell, the way I look at coaching is giving space to people to think about their thinking so that they can see themselves and the world differently.
Wow. I'll leave it at that, Jerry. So we're comfortable with pauses, by the way, right? We're coaches.
I'll build up on what Jerry said, and therefore, we can work and restore hope. Something that a lot of us struggle with overwhelm, with burnout. We can restore hope and a belief in ourselves that we can do it. We can find a way forward in all of these crises.
Wow. Okay. Jackie or Joy? I'm preserving the sanctity of your last statements. That's why I didn't want to meddle with them.
Me na lang, Jackie.
Yeah.
Mas may
Wala.
wisdom si Jackie. No, just
Humility is also a good quality of a coach, Joy. So
rounding
there.
out the conversation, right? A polycrisis world tends to rock the core of the human being, right? Especially of the leader. Um, there are many systems, technologies, frameworks out there that people can use to get maybe smarter and address certain things. But only understanding self, which coaching actually brings about, and how to navigate all of these things, makes humans wiser.
Mhm.
In purposely living our lives um, to where we actually want to go. Whether it's human connection, greater impact in the world, just navigating and surviving, all of these things um, tends to come out of deep reflection. And coaching is that one thing that actually helps us self-reflect.
Mhm. Let's take a pause before we listen to Jackie.
Save the best for last.
Hirap naman sundan ng mga yan. Um, one of my partners it said something that really stuck with me, and I think it's worth sharing here. It's in Tagalog. Madaling maging tao, mahirap magpakatao. At the end of the day, we are human beings in front of other human beings, and if we respect and understand that, then we'll make it a better world.
Right. Coaching will definitely make this world a better world. So with that, let's thank you. Thank you so much, our dear panelists. We're now opening the floor for questions. I'm seeing some few questions. We'll be reading them and we'll allow our panelists to reflect and provide their perspectives as well. Yes, please feel free to show your thumbs up emoticons, heart signs, clapping. We definitely welcome them. Thank you so much, and a lot of learning. Especially, I learned a lot. So, and many people are also saying their appreciation on the screen. And let me just open this up with the first question. I might have missed some questions earlier. That maybe you can also bring that up. But for now, let's look at this. One question says, "What if they see you as a bad leader?" Like you had previous misunderstanding and they are no longer open for communication but only work. How can you now reconnect with them? How can you now coach them? I don't know whether I read it correctly or you understood it well. I'll just repeat. What if they see you as a bad leader? Because you had previous misunderstandings with probably their people and they're no longer open for communication and they just want to be civil and work with you, how can you reconnect with your people, no, maybe through coaching? Kasi parang siguro dati medyo bad leader ka and medyo nagbago ka na. Ngayon nahirapan ka tuloy mag-reconnect with them kasi parang iba na yung tingin sa'yo ng mga tao. That's how I interpreted the question. May mga tips of the trade ba kayo dyan?
Trust is so basic for any coaching to work. No? So I think if you have some image issues, I think you need to really fix that first before you even attempt at coaching. This person, because the person is uncoachable. I don't think he will accept. Remember, it's the coachee that works a lot in the coaching conversation. So trust must be there.
Mm. May tip ka ba, Jerry, on paano mo ba kahit paano ma-turn around ng konti? Or
You have to
mag-win ka ng trust man lang? to restart the relationship.
Yeah, you have to do actions that earn back that trust. If you have lost it, it can still be saved if it's not that serious, no? Hindi naman siguro that serious. Then work on the trust level, and then find the time that coaching becomes appropriate.
Mhm. Okay. Other
Yeah,
thoughts and
to add to what
perspective?
Jerry's
Miss
shared on
Jackie?
trust, two words are coming up for me. One is grace. Give yourself
Mm.
some grace. Wala namang leader na
Mm.
perfect. Wala namang leader na hindi nagkakamali.
Mm.
And
Mm.
so, if perhaps something that you said or did in the past had caused some hurts, then the second word that comes to mind for me is vulnerability. Have some
Mm.
vulnerability to have honest and open conversations about maybe even being sorry, and asking the questions of
Mm.
eh, turn it around, 'di ba? Instead of asking, "How can I make this work?"
Mm.
Ask them, "How do you think I can make this work? What will help you so that
Mm.
I can support you better as a leader?"
Mhm.
Right? So grace and
Mhm.
vulnerability.
Love that, love that. And sabi, nag-ask nga tayo, no, ano ba yung qualities that might be used more in the future. I think those are it, no? Grace and vulnerability, humility more and more in the future of work. Wonderful. And our previous panelist, Vina, also anyone else would like to close that out?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
You mentioned you can emphasize on that fact. Whereas egos were the norms, traditional
Ah,
leadership.
true.
The what's required of leaders now, or even us as coaches, is adaptability, maybe curiosity,
Mm,
and a whole lot of
mhm,
humility, because leaders cannot
mm,
provide answers, all the answers in the complexity of the world now, right? And how then
mhm,
do we equip others so that together we are able to do this? I think that's one of the maybe large pills a lot of leaders need to take in
true,
order to, and therefore they also recognize the need that they need to be coached.
for sure. And vulnerability. No, kasi Joy touched on empathy as well, no? Similar to Jackie alluded to. How do you balance empathy and accountability when coaching during difficult times, no? How do you balance empathy and accountability when coaching during difficult times? Good question. Kasi pag ina-assume natin during difficult times, mas heightened yung sense of sensitivity, vulnerability, di ba? So, ano bang gagawin natin diyan as coaches while not diluting accountability?
It's not either or situation
Mm,
in the first place,
mm,
no?
mm,
I think you need to do
mm,
both. You need to be empathetic, and you need to go for accountability. So I think
mm,
we need to change the questions that we ask. It's not should I go for accountability versus
mm,
it's what can I do to serve both? Empathy is
mhm,
nothing else but being sensitive to the
mhm,
emotions of your people.
mhm,
That's a wonderful competency, isn't it?
mm, mm,
Because if you just make people do something and be a jerk, I don't think that result will last very long, because
mhm,
leading with fear is has a short shelf life.
mhm,
Short,
mhm,
so I think you need to have change the questions and serve both. Be empathetic
right.
and be accountable.
Right. And true, though, the most effective coaching conversations amplifies both empathy and accountability. Good. Anna, did you were you about to say something there?
All good. I think
All good on
Jerry
your end?
did that very.
Yeah, spot on. All right, wonderful. So next question, ladies and gentlemen, how can you separate being a human being and a leader in the organization? How can you separate being a human and a leader in the organization?
You cannot. At the end of the day, every leader is a human, and to try and separate that, I don't even understand what that might look
Mm.
like. Um,
Maybe
you
what
cannot.
I can add there, what we're seeing
Mm-hmm.
from Gen Z is that they value authenticity. It's one thing that
Mm.
they like seeing in their leaders. And so I think that's the humanity and the leader all in one. And it goes
Mm.
back to what has already been said about vulnerability and empathy and humility. Plus,
Wonderful. Less accountability, of course, right? Okay. Any of we don't have, please feel free to type in your questions. We are at the tail end of our conversation, and this is a very opportune time to ask our illustrious and stellar panelists to elaborate from our very talented panelists. So if you do have questions, please type them in. Okay, we have another question here. What support systems should be in place for coaches themselves? Okay, so parang tayo ba, 'di ba? Parang sabi ni HR, who's HR for HR? Now who's the coaches for coaches probably and other support system. Thoughts about this question?
When we say support for coaches,
Mm.
is it referenced within an organization? Because the way I look at it, even coaches need continuing education support. And so you can have a lot of support systems. You can have, you can have a regular, in ICF, you have mentor coaches,
Mhm,
you have
mhm,
supervision coaching. These are all part of support systems. You can have your own support systems within organization. Even
mhm,
if when you introduce coaching in the organization,
mhm.
you have to think of support systems for those coaches, isn't it? For them to practice the skills and get support and grow in the process.
Wow, good. Any other support system for coaches or coaching systems for coaches?
I think community is a very strong support system that's worked for me in my
Mm,
experience.
mhm,
Having a group of people that you know you can ask questions of, especially if you're just starting out as a coach, to look to others who perhaps have gone through similar situations in the past, asking your questions very openly and candidly. So having a good, I think, community to lean on is a good support system to have.
mhm. Nice, good. So we do have, we'll take this one last question, very particular, and I don't know, perhaps you have a perspective on this. How do you handle being the youngest manager, where despite delivering results, some people still perceive you as not competent because of lack of experience or tenure, probably?
I think yeah. Go
No,
ahead, Joy.
I was young once. No.
Yeah. What
We
We're
all
what
all
did you
did.
young
do, Joy?
ones, right? So
Yeah.
I think
What did you do? Yeah.
whatever is the case, whatever room you are, at some point you're always the youngest, the only female, the only Filipina, the non-executive. I don't know, the one Asian, etc. There's I think not to um discourage the one who asked the question, but asking that kind of question actually reflects how you think of oneself. That age is a determinant of success, or that tenure is a determinant of recognition. So maybe to reverse that, how can I ask how can I type of questions,
Mm.
so that you're able to address whatever issue it is that you have. Because at the end of the day, especially in the world right now, a lot of the leaders or a lot of teams are actually looking for really fresh ideas to address certain things that traditional thinkers may not actually be able to address. So the diversity in the room is very much appreciated by most organizations.
Wow.
So you have to ask yourself how you can better contribute in that
Mm.
conversation.
Ang galing. I like that. Yung flipping the question to how can I.
Mm.
Wonderful.
Yeah, if you're a young manager, sometimes you have this perception that you need to exert your authority. You're a manager now. Okay, I think you need to know the balancing act between managing and leading. And this is where the leadership muscle becomes very critical for you to win the hearts of the people who perceive you to be young and inexperienced. So that balancing act between managing and leading is very critical, because a lot of our training programs are just geared towards more management skills,
Mhm.
no? Very little
Mhm.
leadership. The human skills. You need a lot of human skills to be able to deal with your team, so that you can reverse your image.
Mhm. All right. Thank you so much. We only have one time for one last question, and I have to insert this because this came from our producer. How can we build an ecosystem of coaches and coachees to pursue addressing what is within our control in polycrisis? Again, how can we build an ecosystem of coaches and coachees to pursue addressing what is within our control in polycrisis?
That's a question for Jackie.
Ayun. Okay, Jackie, tinuro ka na.
Okay.
Voluntold ka na, Jackie. Go
I guess
ahead.
if you think about ecosystem, what that means is everyone playing a role, right, and everyone being active in their roles of creating an environment where um, you are open to being coached, you are open to coaching others. That's my understanding of that ecosystem, I guess. And how can we build that? It's to keep talking about coaching. I think this kind of forum is certainly helpful. Creating spaces where we can understand what does it mean to really be coaching, to be
Mhm.
coached, and then I guess move from there.
Yeah. My own take on the question is this. I think it's not enough that we equip leaders with the coaching skills. I think we need, for that to be sustained, we need to create a coaching culture. So that's where everybody is coaching and get coached, and it becomes a natural way of just conversing
Mhm.
those
Mhm.
things
Mhm.
that people do in that kind of a culture. Make it a culture so that it becomes part of the DNA of the organization.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
And maybe
Hannah
what
and
I can
Joy?
add is building from Jerry about conversation. So even if it's not pure coaching, a lot of the coach-like skills can
Mm.
be translated to our normal conversations. That is
Yeah,
very, very
oo.
a better workplace for everybody.
Mhm. Joy, would
I
you
don't know.
like
I'm
to
thinking of a
close things
Filipino word
out for
again
the whole session?
that can close this out. But they've said it. No, it's really finding the avenues by which coaches can learn from each other. Coaches can propagate and I guess maybe systemically share um, what's happening on the ground and what are some of the insights and learnings coming from that so that the coaching community actually becomes better at it um and being mindful that in sort of a way we are stewards of how people will navigate the polycrisis world, right? So how do we then steward each other and learn from each other? And that's the kind of ecosystem that's needed um, in today's world, be it in a corporation or a coaching community such as this. And there are many venues. Forums are one. podcasts are another. Just regular catch-up sessions with each other, or co-coaching one after the other, shared coaching type of activities. Because those are all mechanisms by which we can develop ourselves to be better coaches and therefore impact the coaches that we coach.
Right. And make coaching a real way of life. No, it's not a luxury. It's a day-to-day skill. It's a day-to-day practice. So with that, let us conclude our session for today. Thank you so much, our panelists this afternoon. We have all learned a lot from you, and what a very engaging afternoon indeed it has been. For an hour and a half, I would like to express again our heartfelt gratitude to our four panelists, Jackie, Anna, Jerry, and Joy. Your expertise and insights really captivated our audience and provided invaluable perspectives on this very vital topic. So, what resonated with me personally is regeneration and transformation, understanding our responsibilities to ourselves and our duty to create a conducive environment where humanity can truly thrive. As we close today's conversation, one thing is clear: coaching in a polycrisis world is not just about navigating complexity, it is all about cultivating resilience, renewal, hope, authentic leadership in the face of overlapping challenges. Our guests have shown that coaching can be a powerful force for transformation, helping individuals, teams, and organizations find clarity, courage, and compassion in uncertain times. Thank you for joining us in this dialogue. May the insights you have heard today inspire you and lead you with empathy to build trust where it's most needed and to embrace the possibility of regeneration in your own spheres of influence. Until next time, let's continue to believe in the power of coaching to shape a kinder, healthier, and more sustainable world. Thank you to the People Management Association of the Philippines, the Philippine Society of Fellows, and the International Coaching Federation Philippines for making this podcast possible. We can't wait to welcome you back for another round of inspiring discussions. And our next topic is coaching across generations. That will be on June 17, 2026. This promises to be another exciting conversation. So until then, keep the coaching conversations going and continue driving engagement wherever you are. This has been your host, Eric Riego de Dios of BPO International. Thank you, everyone, and have a great week ahead. God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you much. Thank you, Joy. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Jackie, Jerry. Thank you so much. Thank you, Deb.